See, some people call me a diversity expert. I don't know if I am one. I don't know what it takes to become one. See, there's no university you can go to get a PhD in diversity. There's no list of criteria that people have come up with that says, if you meet these criteria, you're now a diversity expert. There's nothing like that. If I'm an expert on anything, it's around human behavior. Right? It's around human behavior. My PhD is in communication. If you know anything about the field of communication, it grows out of two fields, psychology and sociology. And so you can think of me as a psychosociologist, right? And so what I do is I study human behavior, and the area that I study human behavior in is this. What do we as human beings do when we encounter new things? How do we respond? How do we react cognitively, emotionally when we engage new and novel things? And I think you'll be able to see fairly quickly how that applies to diversity issues, okay? So I talk a lot about open-mindedness as a quote-unquote diversity expert, okay? For me, diversity is all about understanding human behavior within a world full of human differences. Diversity is great for solving problems, and a diversity of perspectives is great for solving problems. Many of you never learned albumin, did you? Many of you, your experiences never allowed you to learn albumin. And so if you never learned albumin, how do you come up with the right answer all by yourself when asked the question, what's the white part of the egg? See, you can't do it by yourself. You can Google it. You can ask somebody, which is what you're doing with Google, because when you access Google and ask, what are you doing? So you're engaging and asking another person's experiences and hoping that they've experienced albumin. And therein lies the power of diversity in solving problems, right? And here's the other thing. If you don't know albumin, you're probably hanging out with people who don't know albumin, right? Because we hang out with people who are like us, don't we? See, we can build mental models and brand burgers, cars, unions. We can brand those things, right? And if we can brand those things, can we also brand people in people's heads? Actually, we can do it pretty easily. And we can brand people in people's heads without them knowing. Whether we like it or not, whether we believe it or not, the truth of the matter is this. We have many brands in our heads about people, about gay people, about poor people. We have brands in our heads about nurses and doctors, don't we? We have brands in our heads about engineers. We have brands in our heads about what socialism is. The brand in the United States is probably different than the brand here, okay? Based on your experiences. We have lots of brands in our heads, and we didn't have to work to get them. They just build up in us in a society that gives us multiple redundant messages. Does that make sense? One of my favorite scenes in a movie comes out of the movie Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back. How many of you have seen this? This is the one where young Luke Skywalker is being trained as a Jedi Knight by Yoda, right? In this particular scene, Yoda has Luke trying to levitate his X-Wing fighter out of the swamp, trying to use the Force to lift it out of the swamp. And so Luke tries. He concentrates and he gets his X-Wing fighter out of the swamp just a little bit, then it drops back down. He concentrates a little bit harder, and he gets the X-Wing fighter completely out of the swamp, and he's starting to move it over to dry land. But before it gets there, a noise distracts him, and the X-Wing fighter falls back into the swamp. Luke looks over at Yoda, and Yoda shakes his head. And Luke says, "I'm trying." And Yoda lifts his head, and he says, "No, there is no try. There is do or do not." There is no try, there is do or do not. And we can only achieve that place that you imagined if we walk together as tall trees, if we talk with one voice, voices in union. Thank you for your time.